Your podcast is on.
Woo! Just breezed in from Indianapolis, where I was at Jam Fest. I'll talk about that in a minute. But wow, was it cold. Actually, I wouldn't know. I didn't leave the hotel. But I knew that I could sense that it was cold. You have a sense for these things, especially when you look out your hotel room window and see people just miserable outside. If there are people outside at all, they were like miserable and rushing to get inside. And speaking of Jam Fest, I need to update the national competitions blog post because Jam Fest has had some changes. The mall apparently was closed, and the mall is where people go to get food, and what they use to navigate through the convention center. Everything's kind of connected because apparently in Indianapolis, they know that it's cold, so they try to keep us inside so we don't have to suffer their insufferable January weather. The mall is closed, and the staff and coordinators at Jam Fest adjusted accordingly, I think, for that, and also for the new policy. Remember, I've said in the past that Jam Fest is one of my favorite events, and still is, but because they had a parent lounge and they dedicated like a whole room to allow parents to go in, 18 and up only. Athletes have to stay out. And there were couches and tables and chairs and TVs and cash bars. So with the new varsity policy of no alcohol being served at cheer events, which I think is the right move, even though you can't completely control it, you can mitigate it in the venue where you're holding the event. So no alcohol, which means no parent lounge. So I got to update that. But they did open an entire exhibit hall, and it was huge. An entire exhibit hall for parents, families, teams, everyone to come in. And there were vendors like the Large Ducks and Fabletics, and a few other vendors were there to shop. But then they had food kiosks with like barbecue, Asian. I think there might have been a smoothie place. There were a variety of options for food there. And then there were dozens and dozens of tables and chairs for people to sit and take a load off and rest. It was relatively quiet in there, as it can be at a cheer competition, but it was a great idea to just kind of let people sit and rest for a little bit. And I thought it was a genius move that there were some teams that chose to meet there. So the team reps would call the teams to, we're going to be at this table in this exhibit hall, and the coaches would then find them there, which I thought was great because they're not gathering in the hallways and trying to find each other and navigate through the crowds there. That was a really good meeting spot. One other thing that I noticed, speaking of the hallways, was they had taped off either side of the hallway. So they wanted you to walk through the middle, and then if you had to stop off and do hair and makeup or sit or whatever it is that we do at cheer competitions, you had to sit within the boxed off tape area. And there were people with like coolers and lawn chairs set up, but it worked because no one was in the way. I was like, genius, brilliant move. Whoever thought of that? All in all, I think it was a smooth event. I wasn't there for very long because I was there in Indianapolis, be part of and cover the very first Pro Cheer League event, which is what this episode is about today. I really wanted to be at the first one. So I reached out to Varsity and was like, hey, let me be part of this. And they chipped in for some of my expenses and gave me access to the event. Beyond that, didn't ask me to do anything else. I was like, hey, I'm going to cover this. Let's work together. And there have been some really gracious partners at Varsity that have opened the doors for me. So I was excited to not only be a part of history, but to bring the details of the events to you. I took so many notes, like pages and pages of notes. I got to interview athletes of the Pro Cheer League teams. I got to interview Commissioner John Newby again. and talked to some team managers and then talked to parents and younger cheer athletes that were there to watch the spectators and got their feedback. And now I'm bringing all of that to you. So I'm going to talk about what was new, what was different, what was familiar, and some things that I think they can still improve on. First, I want to give a big shout out to some people who came and said hi. We found each other at Jam Fest. Cambry and Jordan from Utah. Dana, who went out of her way, braved the cold. Dana from ATA Neon. And then some of my new cheer parent besties, Blair, Stephanie, Jamie, and Lindsay from ATA, and all of their husbands who were very involved cheer dads and wanting to know how cheer dads can get more involved. And we had a great time. Thanks for making me laugh, making me smile, and coming to say hi, you guys. As always, please share this episode with a friend if you think it'll be helpful. If you haven't left a review yet, that really helps. Even if you just leave a rating, that would be awesome. It's just a couple of taps of your finger in whatever app you're listening in. And for this episode, there are going to be some special things for YouTube that you won't get to necessarily experience in the same way that you would if you were just listening to audio. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Without further ado, here is my coverage and thoughts and impressions on the first ever Pro Cheerleading League match. This episode of the Cheer Mom podcast is brought to you by my new favorite piece of clothing, my Apollo socks. I'm not kidding. It's like a hug for your feet. Listen to more of the episode to learn more and find out how you can get 10% off. Okay, let's just get the varsity discussion, conversation question out of the way. I feel like, and it's not unfounded, but it seems as though whenever varsity is involved in something or has their logo on something, people immediately, automatically roll their eyes and go, oh, it's a money grab. Oh, it's a monopoly. Oh, they want control. Now, I am not sitting here as a varsity apologetic, and no one has asked me to say anything positive or negative about varsity. But here's my take. This is fully my take, conjecture, speculation on how varsity is involved with the Pro Cheer League based on my conversations, based on my research. There's a lot of information out there about this, you guys. It's not just in the cheer world. They're in the business world. They're talking about the Pro Cheer League. And I highly encourage you to put Google alerts on some of the things that interest you in the cheer world, because it's really cool to see how cheerleading is discussed outside of our world, like in the business world, and the way that officials within the cheer industry present the cheer world to the quote unquote outside world. But based on the research that I have done and the people that I have spoken to, the Pro Cheer League is presented by varsity. And I think that they are very intentional with that phrasing and the way that they are presenting it to the public. It's not varsity's Pro Cheer League, although varsity is controlling it. Staff at varsity is all the ones who are executing and operating the Pro Cheer League, from logistics to resources. But I think it's interesting that it says presented by varsity. To me, and one thing that I learned right before I got there over the weekend was that the Pro Cheer League was, even though it was at the same venue as Jam Fest and it benefited from being at a cheer competition, that was varsity's cheer competition, it was kept very separate from Jam Fest, all the way down to ticket sales, registration, even signage. Like, there was no real crossover. One staff person at varsity told me that registration, even for coaches and officials, was completely separate because the Pro Cheer League is not a USASF event. And I was like, I wonder why that is. And The more I thought about it, the more I wonder, I haven't done the research on this yet, but the more I wonder if the Pro Cheer League is registered as its own entity. If I had to bet money, I would say that it is, which means that it's probably, my guess, funded and operated by varsity, but they're keeping it separate so that they can potentially sell it as an asset. Just my guess. They may still want to keep operational control because it's people in cheerleading, et cetera, et cetera. But I do have to wonder if it's something that they are developing, that they have put in all the upfront cost for, but it's something that they want to keep very separate from the all-star cheer industry and from varsity spirit in general, so that they can just be on there as a sponsor and maybe sell it off as an asset, as an independent business. That's just my guess. We'll know more as we go on, and I'll have to do some more research on that. But either way, again, not making excuses for varsity, but I do resent the comments a little bit that say, oh, it's just a money grab. Oh, it's not on varsity TV. You have to get it somewhere else. It's just a money grab. Let's take a step back here and think about what they're trying to do and how they are trying to elevate the sport in a different way. And you have to do that through different means. They have put in all of the upfront costs, the athlete salary, the travel, the uniforms. I'm sure that there is a cost to their partnership with Ion, which we'll get into. But they are pulling more sponsors in. There were several sponsors that were there right next to varsity as being part of the Pro Cheer League. So as this is more of a proven model, they will probably be able to pull in more sponsors to fund more things like uniforms, travel, exposure, marketing, etc. Someone also made the comment that, oh, are they even getting paid a livable wage or $15,000 spread across 20-something athletes? That's not a lot. You're right. It's not a lot, but it's more than it was a year ago. And do you know how to help get them paid more and help get more funding for this so that they can be paid more? Buy tickets, watch it on TV, share it, talk about it. It's how sports business works. The NFL, those players get paid so much because they sell out stadiums, because the TV networks are getting millions of eyes in front of their ad sponsors. So while that kind of growth takes time, we as a cheer community can help these athletes that we love so much, Liam Patulski, Corey Little, Maddie Brum, Gabby Butler. We can help these athletes actually make a living doing what they love and what they're good at. And in turn, maybe our kids can have cheer aspirations beyond college if we watch, if we buy tickets, if we get exposure to the Pro Cheer League. Whether you agree with all of varsity's tenets or mission or values or whatnot, I think we can look at the bigger picture and get more eyes on this and get our athletes paid. Wouldn't that be amazing? Okay, so I'm just going to take you through my experience in chronological order of how I experienced the event. I had been to that venue before because of JamFest, but there was literally like no Pro Cheer League signage among the JamFest signage, which again further proves that they were keeping it very separate. I do wish they would have had more signage, but I digress. I walk up to the ticket counter and I immediately noticed that it was not varsity employees. It was a company that they had hired to manage ticket sales, I believe. They were very friendly, very organized. There were varsity reps on hand for people like me who were like, hey, I didn't buy a ticket, but I know that there's a badge for me somewhere. But it was very much like not varsity branded. It was Pro Cheer League branded. It was very high security in the sense that you're not going to be able to sneak into this event. Period. End of sentence. Maybe you can sneak into a cheer competition. You will not be sneaking into a Pro Cheer League event. They have that locked down, like to the point where I had the right wristband, but I didn't have the right lanyard. They would not let me in. I had a wristband that said personnel, but that was not good enough. So you will not be sneaking into this event. Cheer dads, I'm looking at you. From the moment that I walked in, I knew that this was not just any cheer event. It was highly, highly, highly produced. There were lasers and LEDs, and I was like, oh my gosh, are they going to have fireworks? What's going to happen? It was a stage to be remembered. Like, picture the biggest and best cheer stage that you have been on or performed on. This was an improvement upon even that. But of course it was, because this was aired live on ION, which is a cable network. So if you have YouTube TV, I think Pluto TV is what they called it. There are several. Basically, someone said if you have a streaming service, you have ION. So you don't have to pay extra for this if you already have like some kind of cable streaming service. It was on DirecTV. My husband, Byron, played it at our restaurant, which was so cool to see it on a big screen out in the wild. So ION is not some extra streaming service that you have to pay individually for. It's part of many other services. So check that out. This episode of the Cheer Mom podcast is brought to you by Apollo Performance Socks. As a longtime seasoned cheer mom, I have seen firsthand how demanding this sport can be on young athletes' bodies, especially their feet and ankles. Enter Apollo Performance Socks. These socks are seriously a game changer. The targeted support and compression have made a world of difference, not just for athletes, but for me, I'm not an athlete. It literally feels like a hug for your feet. I had a cheer mom tell me it feels like these socks were licked onto my feet by kittens. Apollo Performance Socks help athletes to practice longer, recover faster, and focus on performance instead of pain. If your cheer athlete is dealing with foot or ankle issues, I highly recommend giving Apollo socks a try. Visit apolloperformance.com and use code CHEERMOM2024 for 10% off of your order. That's Apollo, APOLLA, performance.com, and enter code CHEERMOM2024. They had a countdown. They had music playing. They were getting the kids hyped up, and all of a sudden, like, the lights go down and all of the laser beams start going, and one of the hosts jumps on the stage and is like, welcome to the Pro Cheer League. And people were getting excited. And it was, if you've ever been to a taping of a TV show, they're like, if you want to be on camera, you've got to jump up and down. You've got to make noise. You've got to scream. And so like every commercial break, they would come and they would get everybody hyped up and the cameras would be on the kids. And I happened to be in one of those groups. And for whatever reason, like, I ducked down. I was like, I'm really just here to take notes. I'm here to bring the event to the people. I don't need to be on TV. But it was so fun to see the kids get excited and engaged. But if that wasn't already excitement enough, and I'm like tearing up kind of talking about this because it was just so cool, they get everybody hyped up and then they start introducing the 4 teams. And they brought out each team, they introduced, and here's the Dallas Drive. And they all had like chants and motions, and the athletes were hyped. Like, they were so pumped. I got excited, and I will play this clip. You can watch the video on YouTube. I got all of the introductions, and the boys were hilarious. The energy was level 10.
A team that wants the grind to the top. Here's your Golden State Grit.
I had seen a few of the athletes before the event started. I got there probably 4 hours before the event actually started, and they were in uniform. The uniforms were very well done. They were tasteful and athletic. I'm sure you've seen the clips on social media, but they also had some sparkle to them and had that kind of all-star flair. But the very first thing that caught my attention that I noticed right away was the boys are humongous. Like, not just in height necessarily, their shoulders, their arms. Like you could tell that these boys were next level athletes and that they work out. And I was like, okay, I see you. Like you're not just the boys that they could find. They were very intentional about how they chose these athletes, and these athletes are working really hard. Not to say that the smaller boys don't work hard, but these boys were built. So they did some time explaining after they introduced everybody and everyone's screaming. They went through how each quarter was going to work. So there are 4 quarters to every match, and each quarter was worth 4 points. So the first quarter is a 2-minute and 15-second cheer routine. And it did feel very all-star. There was no chanting or cheering. They performed skills. I'm getting ahead of myself. But they performed skills that you're not going to see anywhere else. They did video pieces on some of the athletes individually. They did one on Corey Little where he was like, I had to take this opportunity. He's 24 and he said his body feels like it's 48, which that tracks, especially with the kind of tumbling that he has been doing for probably more than half of his life. That he was like, I couldn't not be part of the first ever pro cheer league. So there was a lot of that sentiment among the athletes. You saw people like James and Dee, who were both on the Netflix series Cheer. A lot of familiar faces. And one thing that struck me was they didn't just hire athletes that were good at cheerleading. They didn't just hire the best tumblers and the best flyers and the best stunters. They hired athletes with performance quality. They hired athletes with performance skill. They hired athletes with leadership skill, people who knew how to speak on camera, yes, but speak to the public, interact with kids, interact with parents. And I'll get into that a little bit more, but that really struck me. These 2-minute, 15-second routines were not just executing skills. They were performing. They were drawing you in. They were engaging the audience and really captivating whoever was watching. And I really hope that that came through on camera through the TV too. So each quarter is worth 4 points. There was a fan element, and those of you who watched it on TV, I think you got a little bit more explanation of what that was. That is something that I know that the officials took back as to there's this element of being able to text in a number and vote for your favorite team, and that plays into the result. We didn't get as much of that live, but I know they were talking about it on TV. So there is a fan interaction element to it as well. So they performed these routines. Each team came out and performed their 2-minute, 15-second routine, like I said, with skills that were just incredible. Dallas Drive had props. They had like these screens, like a stretch fabric screen that you would see in like a vendor booth somewhere. And they had athletes behind that were throwing stunts and waving flags. It was a lot that were going on. It was so entertaining. I'm curious if these routines are going to stay the same for all 5 matches. I would guess that they're not, but that will be interesting to see unfold throughout the season. Something else that was different from see at a cheer competition is the coaches were actually on the stage. They weren't on the mat, but they were on the stage with their athletes for a big part of the match, talking to them, giving them mat talk, giving them pointers. I think talking about strategy. It was cool to see the coaches interacting with the athletes as they were competing and performing. So quarter 1 ends and they had officials or judges in the back judging their routines. And I think that's where the fan voting would come in, because I don't recall if they announced the winner of that quarter immediately. They may have. There was just a lot going on. So quarter 1, pretty simple. You see all 4 2-minute, 15-second routines, if I haven't said that enough times already. 2 started the series of quarters where they played games, and there's a lot going on. It took me a little while to understand this, but basically they have all of these games, and some of them are played simultaneously between two teams, and some of them are played one team at a time. The quarters thing it was a way to break it up and make it entertaining without feeling too long. It was a way for them to reset props and have commercial breaks and things. And then the end of each quarter, it was really cool. The actual pro cheerleading athletes were coming out from backstage, working the crowd, taking pictures. Liam Podolsky was out there, I feel like almost every single time, taking pictures with people. The athletes were passing out like stickers and buttons and things with their team name on it, and waving flags and really interacting with the crowd. So that was super, super cool. So let's talk about some of the games that they played. The first one was very straightforward. It was two teams at a time, two stunt groups at a time, and they had to perform a basket. And whichever basket went highest, that team won. And that was sort of like a coin toss situation, because whichever team won that first round got to choose the next game that they played. So this is where strategy comes in. And I really love this element of strategy in cheerleading, because you don't really get that, because in any kind of cheerleading, like, you have your routine and you just hope it's better than the other team's routine. There's not a lot, if any, room to say, oh, they threw this stunt or this number of tumbling skills, so now we're going to do a harder stunt or throw more tumbling skills. There's not a lot of time to make those changes, if ever. So this one, it's a way to incorporate strategy. So the teams know how to play these games before they hit the mat, so they know where their strengths are, where they think they can win. So the winning team of this first challenge got to pick the next game. So the next game that they played was called Co-ed Endurance. And this was one co-ed stunt at a time from one team and one from another team. They only ever pit two teams against each other. So the name of the game was Co-ed Endurance, where they did what's called popovers with a co-ed stunt. So one boy would hold one girl up in the air while she did a heel stretch, and he would have to switch hands with her, and she would have to switch her heel stretch every time he switched hands. And whoever did the most won that game. Atlanta Air ended up winning. They got to pick, they did a coin toss on this, and they got to pick whether they were going to go first or second. So a strategy there was, well, you want to go second because you want to see how many you have to do. Atlanta actually did the co-ed and the all-girl version of this game, and I think that they won both. No, they did win both. And they had a very specific strategy where they would do quick switches. So I'll play the videos so you can see what I'm talking about. But it was very noted that there was a strategy.
Maddie, as an ex-cheerleader, tell me, is there a dominant hand, and how much harder is it when it's not dominant here as a base?
Well, it's like extremely difficult.
And they actually talked to one of the athletes from Atlanta Air after they won that game. And they're like, you have a specific strategy. What is it? And she's like, well, I can't say too much, but we like to do it quickly. So it's really cool how they're playing into the whole strategy. And spoiler alert, I talked to another official the next day, and I said, what's the feeling among everyone? And they said, well, we had a meeting with all of the coaches and managers this morning, and they are already talking about strategizing for the next match and changing things up. So that's really cool too. You're not going to get the same experience every match. I think that the way that they do things is going to change up a little bit. The next game that they played was called Flash Pyramid, and this was a crowd favorite. It was played simultaneously between two teams, one stunt group per team, and they had a big screen in the back, and they would flash a silhouette of a stunt. And the athletes had to look at the silhouette, figure out how to build that stunt, race to the line or over the line where they could build the stunt, and the team that built the stunt first won. It was so cool. That's all over social media too. I'll give you a little clip. I think they did 4 rounds of that. One thing that they kept saying in announcing and commentating was rivalry. This is going to start a rivalry. That didn't really land with me, but maybe there will be something that develops across the season where maybe Atlanta Air and Dallas Drive have a rivalry in certain games or something like that, but we'll see how that goes. I think they're trying to incorporate more like sports vocabulary in it, but I was like, well, this is okay. Like I don't see the rivalry thing, but maybe it'll be something that develops, like I said. Now, much like you know about from Stunt, and this has been compared to Stunt before people really saw it, and although I have yet to watch a Stunt match, Stunt people are saying, no, this really isn't like Stunt. But one similarity is they had an official on the stage with a mic and 3 judges or officials in the back where the judges stand would be, and they were talking to each other. And the official on stage could call things, and the officials in the back were calling things as well. The next game that they played was called Last Pass. It was a tumbling challenge. So they had 3 people. It was basically 4 people per team. So 3 people would tumble in a group, and they were looking for synchronization, skill, and execution. And then there would be someone who threw the last pass. So you have 3 people tumbling from this corner, they finish their pass, and then the one person does a specialty pass from the other corner. And that's where I think the multiple officials talking to each other really came in handy, and that's where we saw it come into play. The next game was also tumbling centered, and my husband said this was his favorite. It was really cool. I've never seen anything quite like it outside of, floor routines in the Olympics for gymnastics, but it was called Bullseye. And a tumbler would go from corner to corner, and there was a bullseye in the opposite corner, and they had to land as close to the middle of the bullseye as possible. So there were different rings, just like you would see if you were playing darts. There was the bullseye, and then there were different rings that went out from there, and wherever you landed, that's the number of points that you got. And so they had 2 officials there with like batons or like wands. Justin Carrier was one of them, where the tumbler would land, and whichever limb landed furthest away, that's the point that they would get. So they would have the 2 officials pointing with their batons where the person landed. And they got 3 chances. The next game, so I mentioned this before, was they called it all girl endurance, and it was heel stretch TikToks, just like the co-ed endurance, except this was with all girl stunt groups, and Atlanta Air won again. For the record, Dallas Drive completed 26 of them, and Atlanta Air completed 32. They interviewed athletes and coaches after every game, after every round, and one theme that kept coming up among the athletes was to trust your training. We trained for this. We didn't leave this for chance. We've worked hard. We've conditioned. We have prepared for this. And the theme was trust your training, which I really appreciated. The next game that they played was called All Girl Big Trick. They had 30 seconds to complete a stunt sequence. It had to include 1 transition, 1 dismount, and 1 load in. Dallas won. These were incredible stunts, too. And you could tell that they had prepared these. They also had a co-ed big trick game. And the stunt groups and the co-ed partners were intentionally chosen, already had their stunt sequences in advance. And I'm curious to see, especially after seeing what everyone else can do, they're going to switch this up. And I bet they have a plan B, like if this stunt group does this, then we're going to perform this stunt. So again, that strategizing is just so cool, because you can, in football terms, you can call an audible and say, okay, I know you plan to do this stunt sequence, but instead we're going to do this one. Or we were going to have this stunt group go out, but now we're going to have this one. A cool thing about the big trick games was they didn't have to execute it perfectly every single time. They had 30 seconds to successfully complete the skill. So if they didn't get it the first time, they were able to try again. And as long as it was within the 30 seconds, the mistake didn't count. So I think I really loved that. It's a sport that's so based on perfection, and to be able to just take a little bit of that pressure of perfection out of the sport, I really appreciated that. So then we come to the very last game, and somehow it was tied between Dallas Drive and Miami Metal, and it all came down to this game. Whoever won this game between the two of them won the whole match. Again, $15,000 if you win the match. So they'll award $15,000 each match to the athletes of the winning team. And then the final match, so they accumulate points throughout the season from each match, and the team with the most points at the end of the season at the last match in Nashville will get a grand cash prize, which they haven't disclosed yet. So this last game was called Highest Tumbler, and it was like the high jump, except with tumbling. So they had a bar between two poles, and the athlete got to set the height of the bar, and they had to tumble over the bar. 2 tumblers per team got to try it, and they had to land on their feet. They could hit the bar as long as the bar didn't fall off, and they had to land on their feet. And who else but Corey Little? I feel like this game was made for him because he likes tumbling over high things. It was very intense. The boys were really competing, strategizing what height they were going to go for. One of the boys from Dallas Drive tried for 7'9", but the winning height was 7'5", done by none other than Corey Little, winning the entire match for Miami Metal. They had a big kind of check presentation and a lot of celebration. It was really cool. And the event concluded, but those who purchased VIP tickets, they got to get into the match early. And I will say there was not assigned seating, so they got to save their seats in advance, get better seats than everybody else. But then there was a VIP meet and greet after the match was over. And this was different from your regular meet and greets that you maybe have participated in at cheer events. But before I get to that, I do want to say, remember how I said that the athletes were coming out in between each quarter and taking pictures with athletes and passing out things? One thing that never changes is that I saw so many of them still go into the crowd, find their moms, vent, get excited, ask for water. Some things just never change. The cheer moms are just always there, and the athletes are always looking for their moms. So the event was over, but the evening was far from done. There was an entire other section behind where the event was set up as a VIP area. They had high tops that were nicely decorated, and then they had a section like a photo area for each team with the team logo on a backdrop, with balloons, with red carpet, with all kinds of stuff. There was merch available for purchase, of course, but they brought out athletes from each team, and they stood there and people could approach them and take pictures. Now, I would say there were maybe 100 parents and kids, give or take, that were there as part of the VIP experience. So there wasn't a lot of waiting for pictures with athletes, but this is going to get out. And so I would imagine that a lot more people, as the season wears on, that a lot more people will be purchasing this experience. So you might have a little bit of a wait, but you have different stations to choose from. And like I said, it was a great experience. They had a DJ and they had things to do, interactive things to do, in addition to taking pictures with the athletes. Immediately, I caught up with the commissioner himself, the commish, John Newby, to get his thoughts on how the event went, and here's what he had to say.
Newby, what did you think of the evening as a whole? Was it everything you hoped it would be?
I think it was everything and more. I'm just so proud of these athletes and these coaches and the team managers. They put a lot of work in a short period of time to get here, so it exceeded my expectations. Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
It was so good. This is going to be really special.
Yeah, no doubt. And we've gotten a lot of feedback already. I mean, we found some things we're probably going to tweak, but we're in the VIP meet and greet right now, VIP Plus meet and greet. I mean, it's just so cool to see these amazing athletes interact with these young, up-and-coming, future professional cheerleaders maybe. Who knows?
So exciting. We'll see you in Atlanta.
All right, thanks a lot, Kristen.
Notice how he said they're going to make some tweaks. So I'll be interested to see what it's like in Atlanta and Houston. And hopefully I'll get to go to those matches too, because I'll be in those cities on those weekends. So I want to see what tweaks they make. One of the things that they had available for purchase was an autograph book, and it was so cool. Little kids were walking around asking for autographs from the athletes. I have to say, Miami Medal won, but Golden State Grit is where the party was in the after party, in the VIP experience. I wanted to hang out with them all night. They were hyped. They made every kid, every person who came through to take a picture with them, they made it a memorable experience. Here's a video that I got of them interacting with one of the kids. It just brings tears to my eyes. They were so kind and so much fun.
One, two, three.
And speaking of Golden State Grit, I asked them if I could talk to them for a little bit, and 3 of the male athletes were like, yeah, of course. And they talked about their experience being part of this inaugural season and what it meant to them. Here's what they had to say.
What are your names?
Claudio.
Ricardo.
Esteban.
What did you guys, was this everything that you expected it would be? Was it more? Was it so fun? Was it stressful? Tell me.
It's a new thing, so we didn't have any expectation. Personally, I was very excited to see the people like cheer so hard for us and get excited about this sport that it was like when you go to a game where there's like big teams and people go crazy on them. Like I felt for a moment like that. Yeah, it was very good. I loved it.
What was your highlight of tonight?
Our highlight, it was the crowd, it was the people that come to support us to see where all the great athletes can do it on the stage. This is a great experience for all of us, for all the new athletes that are like watching this, and the way that they can look it up is they make the sport grow.
And what are you looking forward to at your next match?
We just keep working hard. You know, we never have a stop, like a pause. We don't need it. Just we need to be focused and get better the part that we have already on mistakes, and the last part is just enjoy this. Right now we're just testing how is this. Right now we know how it's gonna be, so we're gonna be ready, working hard all the time. Thank you.
Amazing.
So I'm just kind of taking it all in, and I turn and look, and there's a little girl walking up to Victor and Kristen Rosario, who we know as the owners, the founders of Top Gun, but they are also the managers of Miami Medal. And this little girl walks up to Coach K and asks for her autograph. And Coach K, just like the culture that we've talked about, she looks at her and she said, "It would be my honor." And she wrote her a little note and autographed her autograph book. It was so sweet. And I just kind of walked up and gave her a hug. And I actually grabbed the mic real quick and talked to the Rosarios about their take and what we might expect from future matches. Here's what they had to say.
Okay, so you guys are at the forefront of like every groundbreaking thing in the cheer industry. And here we are at the end of the first ever Pro Cheer League match. What are your thoughts?
Super excited just to be part of it. It's really nice to be able to give the kids something else, something new that's very, very different from what they're used to, something to kind of reignite their spirits and bring a little bit of fun back into cheerleading, because I feel like we miss that sometimes. Just really blessed to be part of it.
And they're just having such a great time. They literally said they went out there, had zero nerves. It was just all about being able to soak in the experience that, wow, we're the first ever pro team, and that's already a win in itself. And then to actually win the first match or be the first one to throw these certain skills out there and go over a pole that was 7'5", like that was just the icing on the cake today.
So exciting. Congratulations. And I have to ask, and I know you might not be able to say, but we saw different games today. We saw certain stunt groups and certain athletes playing in certain games. Can we expect the same games, the same stunt groups, the same sequences every time, or are you guys going to mix it up?
I believe everybody will be mixing it up a little bit. Definitely some of the games will reappear, at least for this season. I know that they're in talks about adding different games as well, but you'll definitely see the same games. I think you'll see different groups. I will definitely believe that everybody's probably going to up the notch now, now that we know what to expect, yes. But, yep, I think it'll continue to evolve throughout the season.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for all you do, and see you in Atlanta.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Good to see you.
All in all, it was an incredible evening. There were kids watching from home that I know that were like, hey, this is actually cool, who didn't have high expectations. The dads were super into it. I think that this is something that is very easy and engaging to follow versus just a cheer routine where it's very subjective. And granted, there are some subjective things to this, but it's more of like I thought it was like a minute to win it kind of feel to it, where you could understand what was happening and root for who you wanted to root for. I caught up with parents and kids and got their thoughts on, was this worth the money? What did you want to see more of? What did you think about the event? What was your favorite thing? And here are some of my conversations with those athletes and parents.
I'm here with
Autumn,
Caroline, Adeline,
Melissa.
And where are you guys from?
Columbus, Indiana.
Okay. And what gym do you compete with?
Royalty Athletics.
Okay. And you guys just watched the very first Pro Cheer League event. What did you guys think?
I thought it was amazing. I loved how they involved all aspects of cheer. It wasn't just co-ed. There was all girl stunt groups, and it was just fantastic.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part probably was the high tumbling because I didn't think they could go that high.
Yeah, the highest tumbling, and I loved the jumping over the bar. What did you think?
I liked when they switched up from heel stretch to heel stretch.
Moms, do you feel like it was worth the ticket price?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. To be part of the first thing was incredible, yeah.
Would you go again?
Absolutely. I may try to go to another one this year. We'll see.
Oh my gosh, which one are you guys thinking about going to?
Well, Nashville's a fun town, so maybe the one in Nashville.
Hold mom to it, girls. Was there anything that you were maybe disappointed by or that you wish there was more of?
I wanted a scoreboard.
Oh, okay. I love that. They kind of, yeah.
Like a leaderboard, yeah.
Okay.
I wanted the routines to be longer.
Okay, so 2 minutes and 15 seconds wasn't long enough for you. Okay. I feel like I wanted the routines. I don't know. I feel like they could do them twice, but that's a lot. That's a lot. I like coming out of the gate with a traditional cheer routine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then close it up at the end.
And yeah, we needed like a finale. I feel like we needed some kind of firework finale.
Yes.
Maybe
it was anticlimactic. It just was oh, and this is the winner. And
it did come down to one quarter, one game. Yeah, I feel like they all need to do some kind of simple routine together at the end or something.
Where's the dance party before, right? We need a dance.
Where's the Cupid Shuffle? There's no church club? What the heck? Thank you.
Fun to see them do the church club.
I would love to see some adult professional athletes do the church club. I can't get my leg up that high. Thank you, ladies. Everybody join. We're here from coming live from the Pro Cheer League event, and I'm here with
Olivia Rossi from Super CDA.
Lexi Bryant.
Kennedy Roth from Super CDA.
Lila Wicklund.
Okay, and so you guys were here watching the Pro Cheer League. What did you guys think?
It was so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool to watch because they did all these cool skills I haven't seen before.
Yeah, they did stunts that are not legal anywhere, I don't think, right? I was I've never seen that before.
They did 5 triple backflips in a stunt and stuff.
Yeah.
I like the one where they run to the line and do a pyramid.
I like that one and where they had to stick in the dart thing.
What do you think that they should have more of next time or in the future?
Maybe a little bit more tumbling.
Okay, more tumbling. What about you? What do you think?
Co-ed stunting.
Oh, co-ed stunting. Okay, I like it. Mom, do you feel like it was worth the money, the ticket price?
Definitely. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
I'm here with
Melissa.
And
Leslie.
And
Adeline.
Where are you guys from?
Chicago.
Okay.
Downers Grove specifically.
Downers Grove. Shout out to Downers Grove. What gym?
Super CDA.
Okay, nice. So we just finished the first ever Pro Cheer League match. What did you guys think? Like, did you love it?
We loved it. We thought it was amazing.
Was there something that you wish they would have done more of?
Stunting.
More stunting?
Yeah, the more like race thing where you like race to do the pyramid.
Yeah, that was really cool. I loved that one. Moms, do you feel like it was worth the ticket price?
Yeah, absolutely. To be the first ones to get to see it, absolutely.
Would you buy tickets again to another match?
Absolutely. I think the kids loved it. We loved it. It was just a really fun experience.
And you guys are in the VIP section. Would you always do VIP, or do you think general admission is okay?
I think always VIP.
Oh, why is that?
Because I get to like meet all of these cool like cheerleaders and they're pretty awesome.
I thought it was really cool how the cheerleaders have been like out in the crowds, and they're out here and they're talking to people, and they're like between each quarter they were taking pictures with the kids.
Right? Like, what great role models they are for our children, and how positive they are and how encouraging they are. As a mom, I just love to see that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There you go, everybody. I was honored, excited to be part of history. I really do hope that this takes off, because it's going to give our athletes so much more opportunity in cheer than they have ever had before. If you believe in this opportunity for our athletes, buy tickets. Watch on ION. I believe that every match is going to be aired on ION. Watch the rerun if they air it. Show your support for these athletes. Follow the team that you love. Follow the Pro Cheer League so you can see what's going on. And I would love to hear your feedback and questions on what I've given you in this episode. So leave a comment, leave a review. You know how to DM me. Let me know what questions you have and what you'd like to see so I can be watching for it, and hopefully elbow the people involved and say, hey, this is what the parents are asking for. They are listening. They want feedback. I'm going to just a soft flex here. I posted in my stories all evening, and Bill Seeley, who's the president of all of Varsity, said, hey, send me your feedback, and gave me his email address. So seriously, you guys, they're listening. Send me your feedback. I have their ear. I would love to pass it on when and where I can. Can't wait to see the next match. Thank you, as always. Follow, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review. And until next week, remember, it is all just cheerleading.
What up, party people? This is Jason Larkins, host of the Let's Talk Cheer podcast, and I've teamed up with Kristen Wheeler of the Cheer Mom podcast and Dan Cotton of the Cheer Biz podcast.
That's right. Hey, everybody, Kristen here. We know that you love cheer, so why not dive into more perspectives? Tune into my podcast, the Cheer Mom podcast, for cheer issues spoken from the parent's perspective. Then head over to Dan's podcast, the Cheer Biz podcast, to learn from a gym owner on how to run a successful cheer business. And of course, don't miss the Let's Talk Cheer podcast featuring Jason Larkins, the one that we all know and love, where they talk about cheer from a coach's perspective.
Which means whether you're a coach, a cheer parent, or a gym owner, we've got you covered. Find all 3 podcasts on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and stay tuned for new episodes each week.